On that morning, Ethan stood in the same office where he once breathed life into every project, and something happened that would have seemed impossible a year ago. Every pair of eyes slid past him like he was a smudge on glass, not hated, not disliked, simply irrelevant. No greeting, no nod, not even the courtesy of acknowledgement. He stood there silent while conversations flowed around him like water around a stone. People he trained, people who once cheered when he walked into the room, now acted like he was furniture taking up space. Through the tall glass windows, the city glittered fast, loud, ambitious. But inside this room, Ethan faced the one kind of silence that hurts more than anger. The silence reserved for someone they've already erased. A year earlier, he was the backbone of the department. His ideas turned failing strategies into successes people bragged about at conferences. He was the quiet force behind wins that others celebrated loudly. Now Daniel, the new young manager, walked by, adjusting his tailored jacket, a hand on a junior employee's shoulder as he spoke with detached pride. "Forget old methods. This place needs fresh energy. We move forward fast." Old methods, as if Ethan's decade of work was dust on an outdated shelf. Daniel continued laughing lightly with the team. "Trust me, we're entering a new era." Someone looked at Ethan for half a second, not warmly, not kindly, but with the stiff discomfort you offer someone you're afraid to be associated with. Then they turned away. No one mentioned his name. No one asked for his insight. He could have disappeared and the room would have functioned the same. His jaw tightened, not anger, just the dull sting of being replaced without a fight, not by skill, but by trend, by youth, by volume. The whiteboard had been wiped clean. Gone were Ethan's diagrams, plans, pathways to wins others still used. Blank surface, blank looks, blank space where respect used to live. Two employees whispered near the coffee station, unaware he could hear every word. Daniel feels fresher, more aggressive. Ethan's quiet, kind of old school. "Yeah, silence doesn't work now. You gotta show presence." Ethan stood only feet away, quiet. And suddenly in their eyes, unqualified. If you're someone who's ever stood in a place you helped build only to watch people pretend you were never part of it, you know this feeling. It's not loud humiliation. It's the cold version, the kind that doesn't shout, only refuses to see you. And if you've ever wanted someone to witness that fall and the climb after maybe this story will feel like company along the way, sometimes knowing someone else survived it makes the silence easier to breathe in. The meeting began. Daniel stood front and center. "We're restructuring everything, adapt or fade out." Light chuckles rippled across the room. Ethan moved to take a seat, the same seat he'd taken for years, but Daniel spoke without turning. "Oh, Ethan, this session is for the core team only. You can sit this one out." The room froze. 3 seconds felt like 30. He wasn't fired. Worse than that, he was dismissed from relevance. Ethan stepped back. No protest. No dramatic scene. Just a slow breath and a hand resting in his pocket to stop the tremor in his fingers. He left the room. The glass door closed behind him with the soft, definitive sound of someone quietly losing a world. He sat in the hallway staring at the floor tiles, not broken. Not yet. Just empty. People walked by. Some avoided eye contact. Some offered a quick, guilty glance, then looked away as if seeing failure might be contagious. He sat still, hands relaxed, but the silence around him felt like a tight collar around the neck. And if you're listening right now and have ever felt people slowly step around you like you were furniture instead of a person, then maybe this voice feels familiar in your chest. And if you're the kind of person who sticks around for stories where quiet people rise when no one expects them to, then you'll probably stay close as his story unfolds. Maybe even tap that follow button so you don't miss what comes next. There's something comforting in walking through these turning points together. His phone buzzed. An email from HR, subject adjustment to role responsibilities. A polite sentence that translated to, "We don't need you the way we used to." Ethan closed the email, no sigh, no slumped shoulders. He simply stood, straightened his shirt, picked up the notebook filled with ideas they once praised, and walked away. No noise, no announcement. People often mistake quiet for weakness. They forget that some storms build without sound, and that the most dangerous man in the room is sometimes the one they ignore. They hadn't seen the moment his eyes sharpened, the moment something inside him shifted from acceptance to resolve. Soon enough, someone else would freeze when they discovered who he really was and what he was capable of without this place. and the day would come when their faces changed instantly. But not here, not today. Today they believed he was nobody, and Ethan let them. The office buzzed louder the next morning. Energy rushed through the building as if someone had announced a celebration, except no one told Ethan what they were celebrating. New posters on the walls, bold headlines about innovation, future change, the kind of slogans companies print when they want to pretend the past had no value. A small crowd gathered around Daniel, who stood proudly at the front like a showman before a performance. People clapped as he spoke, short, sharp applause, the kind given not out of admiration but social instinct. Ethan approached the group quietly, not to join, just to pass through. But conversations shifted like water blocking itself around a rock. A junior analyst whispered not low enough, "Is he still here?" No anger in the voice, just confusion, the kind reserved for things that feel outdated. Ethan paused, not visibly, inside. Being doubted was one thing, being forgotten was another. He used to walk through this hallway like a quiet anchor everyone relied on. Now even the air seemed to pull away from him. A screen behind Daniel flickered with a presentation slide. New vision, new era, new leader. There was a line beneath it, Daniel's name, not Ethan's. No mention of the man who built most of the groundwork being celebrated. Daniel noticed Ethan, then offered a thin smile, more like a warning than a greeting. "Morning, Ethan. Hope you're settling into your revised role." A few muffled laughs rippled through the group. Ethan didn't flinch, but his fingers subtly tightened around the papers he carried. Papers filled with work he'd done while others slept, the kind of dedication that used to earn respect. Now it earned amusement. Daniel continued speaking like he owned the building. "We'll be reshaping our workflow. Efficiency above everything." Ethan caught the phrase. Efficiency was the same word he used years ago, the same system he designed. Yet today, it belonged to someone else's voice. One employee raised a hand. "Will the old files still be used?" Daniel smirked. "They're outdated. Trust me, I've got it." Ethan looked at the screen. The bullet points glowed brightly, every idea traced back to work he'd once quietly perfected. His work, his structure, his legacy, rewritten with someone else's signature. He stood there. No anger, no expression, just a stillness that could stop time. Quiet is not weakness. Quiet is the inhale before change. In the break room later, Ethan poured coffee. His hand, steady, face calm. Observing. Listening. Two employees sat nearby, scrolling on their phones, speaking in hushed tones. "Daniel's got big energy. You can feel it." "Yeah, and Ethan, nice guy, but nice doesn't win anymore." Nice, as if being decent was a flaw. Someone else entered, grabbed a drink, didn't even look his way. The refrigerator door closed louder than necessary, a symbolic full stop to his relevance. Behind him, a microwave beeped. A group laughed at something not about him, but the timing made it feel like they were laughing over him. He took a sip of his coffee, but the bitterness wasn't from the cup. Being forgotten hurts more than being hated. Hate at least means memory. Silence means erasure. He finished his drink slowly, not rushing, not escaping. A presence refusing to fully disappear. For a second, his reflection stared back at him from the steel surface of the coffee machine. Tired eyes, composed face. A man watching himself fade in a place he once illuminated. At his desk, Ethan opened a drawer. Inside lay small reminders of who he once was here. Awards, handwritten notes from leaders who no longer worked here, praise for projects people pretended not to remember. A photo of him and the old CEO handshake, respect in both eyes. He placed the picture face down. One colleague walked by, patting his shoulder automatically, friendly gesture, empty intention, the kind given to people on their way out. Ethan didn't move, but in his eyes a flicker appeared, not sadness, not surrender. Something smaller and sharper. Resolve. Quiet resolve, the kind that grows not from anger but clarity. They thought they were watching him fall. They didn't know they were watching him wake up. And soon enough, they would learn that some people don't crash when pushed out. Some rise, and when they rise, the room finally sees them too late. The afternoon air in the office felt heavier than usual, a strange mix of ambition and nervousness. Word had spread a high-profile visitor was coming, someone important. People fixed collars, straightened ties, refreshed lipstick as if preparing for a spotlight. Daniel paced confidently near the entrance, rehearsing short, polished lines under his breath. His posture said leadership. His eyes said hunger. Ethan watched from a distance, not waiting, just existing in the quiet space he was shoved into. His desk, once a quiet command center, now looked almost borrowed, like something a temp employee might use while waiting for real instructions. The murmur around the office grew louder. Shoes clicked. A sudden hush washed through the room. Someone whispered, "He's here." The elevator doors opened. A tall man in an understated suit stepped out. His presence wasn't loud, but it demanded attention. Not charisma through force, but through certainty. The kind forged in trial, not spotlight. This was the CEO visiting the real one, not the kind they printed on posters. The room shifted instantly. Back-straightening smiles, fixed voices softer. Daniel walked forward quickly, hand extended, bright grin in place. "Welcome, sir. I'm Daniel, head of operations here." The CEO shook his hand politely, but his eyes didn't stop at Daniel. They scanned the room, slow searching, like someone who doesn't take things at face value. And then they landed on Ethan. A pause. Not dramatic, just recognition. The kind that hits deeper when no one expects it. Ethan didn't move, didn't speak. He simply nodded, a man too used to silence to break it first. Daniel followed the CEO's gaze and forced a laugh. Yes, Ethan, he assists with internal tasks. Assists. Internal tasks. A title they gave when they wanted to erase a person without firing them. The CEO's expression didn't move, no anger, no surprise. Just memory. A subtle crease formed at the corner of his eye, the smallest sign of someone filing away a detail. "Good to see you again, Ethan." Again. A single word that dropped like a pin in a silent room. A few heads turned. Whispers stalled mid-breath. Daniel's smile tightened. "You two have met." The CEO didn't break eye contact. A long time ago. Ethan only replied with a quiet, respectful nod, voice steady. "Welcome, sir." No bragging, no claim. Just grace, the kind that doesn't need to prove anything to be true. Daniel rushed to redirect conversation toward himself. "We've made a lot of improvements recently. Completely new systems, new vision, a younger, more dynamic approach." Younger? Dynamic? Forward? All words chosen not for honesty, but for positioning, the kind people use when they're terrified someone might see beyond their surface. The CEO listened politely, but his gaze drifted again toward the side of the room. Toward Ethan, the man they all pretended was finished. For a second there was a subtle shift in the CEO's expression. Not pity, something sharper. Awareness. Ethan lowered his eyes briefly, calm, unreadable. The power in him wasn't loud. It sat quietly beneath the ribs like a pilot flame. Daniel guided the CEO through workstations, pointing, narrating, absorbing every approving nod he imagined he was earning. "We've phased out older processes. Productivity-focused now. Modern leadership." The CEO stopped near a workstation, brows lowering slightly at a messy set of documents, rushed changes, sloppy execution hidden under enthusiasm. A trace of disapproval flickered. And team retention morale. Daniel hesitated for a beat. Everyone's adjusting. Progress always requires a shift. A polite way of saying we push people out when they don't fit the image. The CEO's eyes drifted again. Ethan remained still at his desk, organizing quiet notes, not inserting himself, simply present with dignity. You didn't have to hear his heartbeat to feel it steady, tired, but unbroken. Ethan glanced at a photo on someone's desk, a team celebration from last year. He wasn't in it, even though he was there that day. Not forgotten by accident, excluded by design. He closed a drawer slowly. No sigh, no shake in his hands. Just quiet acceptance, and something building beneath it. The CEO's tour ended near Ethan's corner. Daniel spoke over him purposely. "We're setting higher standards. Some older roles are being reevaluated. Older roles, older ways, older people." The CEO didn't look away from Ethan. "Performance review based on age or contribution." Daniel blinked. "Contribution, of course. Then too fast and culture fit." Culture fit, the safest phrase used to justify pushing someone aside without saying we don't value you anymore. A moment of silence, stretched not awkward, just revealing. The CEO finally turned to Ethan, voice low but deliberate. "I'll be around again soon. Let's catch up properly next time. No big scene, no dramatic shock. Just quiet recognition in front of the wrong audience, the kind that plants doubt in arrogant minds." Daniel laughed lightly, masking tension. "Of course, sir. Ethan is always here." Ethan held the CEO's gaze for a second. A silent acknowledgement passed two men who understood something unspoken. Then Ethan looked back down, letting the moment pass, not grabbing it. Because men like him don't chase attention. They earn timing. And timing just shifted. Not loudly, not visibly. But enough that somewhere deep under the quiet of his chest, a door unlatched not to return to this place, but to leave it behind with dignity intact. And the next time someone's face changes when they see him, it won't be confusion. It will be realization and regret. Evening light filtered through the office windows, that muted gold tone that usually softens things. Not today. Today it only stretched the tension across the room like a quiet thread waiting to snap. People gathered near the conference area for after-work drinks. Cheap sparkling wine poured into plastic cups. Hollow congratulations echoing in corners. Daniel had started calling it a new era social hour, as if history could be erased with one toast and a smile. Someone spoke loudly enough for half the room to hear. Feels like a fresh chapter, doesn't it? Fresh for them. For Ethan, it felt like standing in a room he once built, watching strangers replace bricks he laid with paint-thin slogans. A few employees whispered near the refreshments. Daniel is really taking charge. Yeah, the CEO seemed impressed. A beat. What about Ethan? Silence. Then a shrug. He's fine. He'll find something or quietly fade out. Quietly fade out. Funny how easily people script your exit when they think your value expired. Ethan remained at his desk, organizing a few last items. Not packing, just preparing. There's a difference. Packing implies loss. Preparing implies movement. His movements were slow, precise, as if time had finally aligned with the pacing of his heartbeat. No rush now. When you stop clinging to a place that stopped seeing you, something in you settles, not defeated, just steady. Daniel lifted a glass and cleared his throat. To growth, new ideas, and the people who will shape our future. Several heads turned instinctively toward Ethan, quick, guilty glances like checking if a ghost was watching. He didn't react. He didn't need to. Sometimes the sharpest statement is the one you never speak. A junior team member approached him hesitantly, holding a cup. Hey, Ethan, just wanted to say, hope things work out? Hope things work out, the corporate version of good luck fading quietly. Ethan nodded politely. They will. Short, calm, simple. A man who doesn't argue with assumptions because truth doesn't need defense. The junior employee left quickly, relieved to have fulfilled some social obligation without lingering in discomfort. Across the room, Daniel raised his voice again, louder this time, performative confidence dripping off each word. Some environments require new voices and new energy. Another polite laugh from a group nearby. Not joyful, obligated. Daniel's eyes slid to Ethan's, satisfaction resting just beneath the surface. He didn't have to say anything. It was in the set of his jaw, the tilt of his chin. This wasn't leadership. It was victory posing as vision. A false king celebrating too early. Later, when the office emptied, Ethan stood by the window. City lights shimmered below a skyline full of stories, ambition stacked on ambition. He used to feel part of it. Tonight he felt separate but not small. Separateness can be power once you stop fearing it. He reached into his drawer and pulled out a small notebook, worn edges faint smudges. Pages filled with thoughts and plans nobody here ever asked to see. The kind of ideas that don't shout but last. He closed it quietly, sliding it into his coat. That wasn't a man walking away. That was a man gathering what belonged to him before he built something of his own. Somewhere dignity wasn't optional. As he walked toward the exit, the receptionist looked up, offering a soft, uncertain smile. The kind people give when they sense someone's story is shifting, even if they can't name why. Leaving early. Just leaving. A simple reply. Calm. Final without trying to be final. He pushed open the glass door. No dramatic pause, no last look back, just forward. Outside, the night air felt colder than it should have. But the cold can wake you up when warmth becomes deception. A passing security guard nodded at him, a real nod, not a corporate one. Long day, long year. Security guards always see things others ignore. He gave Ethan a look that wasn't pity, respect, the quiet kind. Some people rise best when no one expects them to. Ethan offered a small, honest smile for the first time that day. Some do. He kept walking. Streetlights flickered across his face as he moved, steady pace, coat collar, turned up notebook under his arm like a promise. That building behind him wasn't home anymore. It was just a chapter that had finished itself without realizing he'd kept the pen. And somewhere above, in a corner office, a CEO probably wondered why a man like Ethan had been left sitting in a shadow. No one bothered to check. When the truth surfaced, and someone's face would change instantly. Not out of shock alone, but recognition. not who are you. But how did we not see you? Some stories don't need noise, they just need time. The next morning, the office felt unusually sharp, like the air carried something unsaid. People moved quickly, talking in tight circles, checking their reflections in glass panels as if preparing for judgment. Rumor had spread overnight. The CEO asked about Ethan, and Daniel didn't like it. Daniel stood near the glass boardroom, hands tucked into pockets, jaw tight, trying to laugh too loudly about something no one else found funny. When leaders feel threatened, they perform louder than necessary. Ethan walked in quietly. No hurry, no slouch, just calm. His coat folded over his arm, that little notebook in his hand. He looked rested, not because life was easy, but because clarity is a kind of rest. Eyes turned toward him, not with respect, not yet, but with uncertainty. The kind that creeps in when people sense a shift they can't define. A whisper traveled. He doesn't look worried at all. Another. Maybe he knows something. People always try to decode calmness, especially when they have none themselves. Daniel approached him, fake warmth wrapped in leadership tone. Morning, Ethan. Big update day, lots to get done. You, ready to support where needed. Like Ethan was a spare tool. Ethan simply nodded, mild, polite. Of course. Daniel blinked, expected defensiveness, got composure. Composure confuses insecure men more than rebellion ever will. Hours passed. Work buzzed around him, frantic, ambitious, shallow, in places where confidence tried to hide doubt. Ethan reviewed a document, quietly, steady hands. Not fighting for relevance. Just doing things well because that's who he was, without an audience. Then something subtle happened. A senior executive, someone Ethan hadn't seen in months, walked in unexpectedly. Not flashy, not loud. A man who built careers quietly, not with slogans, but with judgment sharpened by years. He scanned the room, eyes moving with intention, then stopped when he saw Ethan seated in the corner. He walked over, not to Daniel, to Ethan. You're still here. Not surprise approval. Daniel froze mid-sentence nearby. Ethan stood respectful. Good morning, sir. The executive nodded, once the simple kind of nod that carries weight. We'll talk later. I have something for you to review. I value your perspective. Value. Perspective. Two words that dropped heavier than applause. Daniel's eyes flickered tight, panicked, masked behind a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Oh, he's been focusing mostly on smaller tasks recently. The executive didn't even turn to Daniel. A brilliant mind doesn't become small because someone forgets to look. Silence shot through the room. Paper stops moving. Breaths pause. Ethan didn't smirk, didn't react. He simply nodded respectfully, as if dignity was natural for him, not forced by pride. And that's when something shifted in the room perception. Invisibility cracks fastest when one person refuses to see what the crowd believes. Someone whispered, "Why did no one tell us he knew leadership?" Someone else, "Did Daniel downplay him?" Paranoia tastes bitter when it's earned. Ethan sat back down slowly, no triumph in his shoulders, only composure. He didn't need revenge. Truth has its own pace and its own voice. And when truth starts speaking, fake confidence gets quiet. Later that afternoon, the executive returned with a folder in hand, placed it directly on Ethan's desk. Look through these. Bring me your thoughts tomorrow. Daniel's jaw clenched so tight his teeth might crack. He tried to speak casually. Sir, I can take that if... The exec didn't look at him. I know where excellence belongs. Excellence belongs. Two more words heavier than titles. Daniel stepped back. Ethan accepted the folder, quietly opening it with care, not grabbing opportunity, just meeting it with readiness. The room felt like it exhaled the kind of hush before a storm breaks in a different direction than expected. And somewhere inside Ethan, the long-dormant certainty stirred fully awake. He wasn't trying to survive this place. He was surpassing it. Not because someone gave him permission, but because value doesn't vanish, it waits. And when the moment arrives, it doesn't scream. It steps forward, steady, inevitable. Soon someone will realize their mistake, and their face will change instantly. But it won't be Ethan reacting then. It will be them. The next morning arrived without drama. No storm outside, no dramatic sky, just ordinary weather, the perfect disguise for a day that would change everything. Ethan walked in early, as he always did, the kind of person who never arrived late even when the world stopped valuing his punctuality. The office was quiet, still waking up chairs, pushed in neatly screens, dark, the faint smell of last night's cheap celebration still lingering. He placed his notebook on the desk, loosened his coat, and sat with the calm of a man who had finally stopped needing the room to approve his existence. He reviewed the documents the executive gave him, pages filled with complex planning, strategic directions, market analysis. Not loud work. Real work. His eyes moved slowly across each line, not to prove something, but because that's who he'd always been, meticulous without audience, committed without applause. A coffee cup landed on his desk, gently, respectfully. It was the receptionist. She hesitated, almost shy. "I know people haven't been fair. Just thought you might want this." Not pity recognition. Ethan nodded. "Thank you." A small exchange. A human one. Sometimes the smallest kindness lands the deepest because it arrives when no one else bothers. As the office filled, Daniel strutted in, late energy, rehearsed again. Confidence painted on like a jacket. He hoped no one noticed was 2 sizes too big. He caught sight of the folder on Ethan's desk and smirked. "Still reviewing that. You don't have to push yourself. Some roles are transitional." Transitional, a soft word for temporary nobody. Ethan didn't react. He simply closed the folder, calmly stood up, and walked toward the executive's glass office. No one stopped him. No one knew what he was doing. They only felt something shift in the air, like the subtle change right before a tide turns. Daniel's smirk faltered, eyes narrowing. He watched Ethan's back straighten with each step. Confidence without noise always unsettles insecure men. Inside the office, the executive sat, already waiting, coat off, sleeves rolled. A man who did real work, not just led meetings about work. He looked up as Ethan entered. "You read it." Not a question, acknowledgement. Ethan nodded and placed the file gently on the desk. "I've marked a few notes, suggestions, risks, opportunities." The executive leaned back, studying him, not the file. Him. "Others did not see what you built here." Not consolation, Truth said plainly. "People confuse volume with talent, noise with direction." His tone sharpened slightly. "And some confuse leadership with insecurity masked as energy." They weren't talking about the file anymore. Ethan stayed silent. Silence had always been his language, but now it wasn't resignation. It was restraint, chosen, controlled. The executive leaned in slightly. "You don't need to stay somewhere that tries to shrink what it cannot understand." Those words didn't strike like lightning. They settled deep, steady, like weight leaving the chest. Ethan didn't smile, didn't react externally. Inside, though, something unlocked. Not anger, not revenge. Direction. The executive continued. "When you're ready, let me know. I'd rather build with you than watch them waste what they never earned." Build with him, not for them. That was the first real offer he'd heard in months, maybe years. No promises, no forced enthusiasm, just a door opening quietly. He stood, shaking the executive's hand, firm grip, steady eyes, mutual respect. "Thank you." "I'm not offering thanks," the executive replied softly. "I'm offering clarity. Clarity is more valuable than opportunity. Opportunity comes after clarity, not before." Ethan stepped out of the office, silently, not triumphant. Centered. Daniel waited at his desk, pretending to scroll emails, his knee bouncing. When Ethan returned to his seat, Daniel forced a laugh. "All good, nothing urgent, I assume," Ethan simply replied. "Everything is clear." Daniel paused mid-breath, as if the air suddenly weighed more than expected. Clarity doesn't raise its voice. It simply clicks into place, and when it does, everybody feels it, even if they don't understand it yet. Lunch break came. People sat in groups, loud, careless laughter, shallow victories shared over salads and styrofoam cups. Ethan sat alone by the window, as always, but he wasn't isolated anymore. There's a difference between being alone and being centered. One colleague, someone who used to rely on him daily, paused near his table, hesitating. "Hey, I know things have been odd. Just wanted to say, you deserved better." Ethan looked up, gentle but firm. "Everyone gets what they choose eventually." The colleague nodded, not sure if that meant forgiveness or a lesson. Maybe it was both. Someone else across the room whispered, "He doesn't look beat. He looks done." Done. Not defeated. Finished with pretending to belong to a place beneath him. And people can sense when someone outgrows a room. They don't know why, but they feel it like a temperature drop. As he returned to his desk, Ethan lifted his notebook. Plans, ideas, not dreams, blueprints. This wasn't a man trying to get back what he lost. This was a man preparing to go where those who underestimated him could never follow. The room around him kept moving, unaware they had already become his past tense. Soon, someone here will run out of breath chasing a future Ethan already stepped into, and the face that freezes when they finally see him again. That moment is coming. Quiet footsteps always arrive before the door opens. Ethan didn't rush. Great exits are never dramatic. They're precise. The end didn't come like a storm. It came quietly in the way mornings arrive without asking permission. Ethan arrived earlier than usual, not because he needed to, but because final days deserve clarity, not hurry. The building lights flickered on, slowly illuminating empty desks and silent screens, the workplace stripped of its noise, revealing only its structure. Funny thing about quiet rooms, they show you what really matters, and what never did. He placed his notebook down, not like someone settling in, but like someone finishing something. A few employees drifted in, greeting each other, louder than necessary, that brittle cheerfulness people use when they sense change but can't name it. Daniel arrived late again, adjusting his jacket, energy-curated smile already loaded. Confidence like perfume sprayed on, not lived in. When he saw Ethan calmly organizing his desk, Daniel smirked. Early start. Trying to show initiative again. No response. Silence can be sharper than confrontation. Daniel mistook it for surrender. Some men only understand noise, they confuse stillness with weakness. Mid-morning, the CEO returned. No announcement, no ceremony, just presence, the kind that doesn't need introduction. Conversations dropped, chairs straightened. The room shifted like metal sensing a magnet. He walked past Daniel without pause toward Ethan's corner. Daniel rushed behind, voice rehearsed. "Sir, I've prepared an update slide deck, a full breakdown of our new strategies." The CEO didn't slow. "We'll get to that." He stopped at Ethan's desk. No spotlight, no performance. Just two men who knew truth when they saw it. "Walk with me." Not a request, an acknowledgement. The room froze. Daniel's smile stiffened into something brittle. As Ethan rose and walked beside the CEO, whispers rippled like wind in a wheat field. "Wait, he's going with the CEO. Since when? What's happening?" Ethan didn't answer their thoughts. He didn't need to. Quiet men don't announce change, they move into it. Inside the executive office, the CEO closed the door gently. Not secrecy, respect. He spoke without preamble. "I wanted you to hear it from me before anyone else does." Ethan waited still, prepared, not eager. The CEO's gaze held the weight of someone who values results over reputation. "There will be a restructuring, new leadership direction. No triumph there, just inevitability. I reviewed your history here, contributions, impact, records." He slid a paper across the desk, a formal document. A role, a promotion, a seat above Daniel, a path back into power. "I want you here in a senior capacity again. Help correct the course." It was respect. It was acknowledgement. It was everything Daniel believed he owned through volume. Ethan looked at the offer. The previous version of him might have accepted, grateful, relieved, vindicated. But that man died in the silence they built around him. He closed the folder gently and pushed it back. "Thank you, truly, but I'm done here." Not bitterness, not rebellion, just truth spoken without anger. The CEO studied him first, surprise, then understanding. "You're sure?" "Yes. There are moments when the world expects you to fight for what you once wanted, and strength is walking away instead." The CEO nodded slowly. "Then let me offer something else. A card, not business personal. When you're ready to build, call me. I don't invest in noise, I invest in people." Ethan accepted the card, not with excitement, but with clarity. "I will." They shook hands. No applause, no music. Just respect moving between two men who didn't need the room to understand. Outside the office, Daniel leapt to intercept them, voice bright, desperate beneath the shine. "Sir, I hope our future plans align with your expectations." The CEO looked at him with polite neutrality, the kind reserved for people who already revealed themselves. "We'll talk." Then he turned to Ethan one last time. A nod, recognition, finality. And then he left. Daniel watched confused panic hiding under his skin, twisting behind his eyes. "So, everything's sorted. We're all good." Ethan picked up his notebook, slipped his coat on. "Everything's clear." 4 words that felt heavier than anything Daniel had ever said. Daniel tried to laugh. "Well, don't disappear on us." Ethan looked at him gently, like you look at someone who never understood the game they thought they won. "Goodbye, Daniel." Polite, soft, decided. Daniel's smile faltered like paper in rain. Ethan walked through the rows of desks, slowly, not lingering, not rushing. People pretended to work, eyes following him in silence. The receptionist stood as he passed, offering a soft nod. "Good luck." "You too." He pushed open the glass door, the same one he once walked through, believing he belonged here forever. Outside, the air felt cleaner. His shoulders relaxed, not because weight left, but because he set it down himself. Freedom isn't loud, it's steady. You don't feel it like a shout. You feel it like a breath that finally reaches the bottom of your lungs. And somewhere behind him in that building full of noise, someone touched Daniel's arm and whispered, "Why does it feel like he won?" Because he did. Not by staying, but by leaving before they could claim credit for losing him. Now Ethan walks forward not toward revenge, but toward something bigger, the life he builds on his own terms. Success won't be loud, it will be undeniable. And someday soon, when the world sees the real cook behind the feast, when a CEO tries to thank the wrong chef again, someone's face will change instantly. And this time, everyone will know exactly who he is.